but then we put them on the return to play protocol. Yeah, no, and see, that's best practice, and if the doctor says they can return, you can run them concurrently, return to learn, return to concur. Yeah. That's interesting.
It was kind of interesting.
We're waiting for Wakefield. We'll just wait another couple minutes and then we'll get started. With what we want to do. If not, I'll get started, right? Yeah, because they're 2 minutes over. We'll just get started. Do you all know each other then? Okay. I'm Cathy Schroeder. I'm a speech therapist here at ESU 1. Currently I at the Wakefield School. I am also the burst coordinator for the state for ESUs 1, 7, and 8. This is Ariane Conley. She's our nurse here at ESU 1. What schools do you have?
Tower and Laurel Gorge.
Mm-hmm. So she's there. If you'd like to.
Rocky Roll, AD at Wayne High School.
Okay.
I'm Jeff Hazing from Randolph.
Al Carruthers from South Sioux City.
Mark Cook, Emerson Howard. Ken Swanson, Emerson.
I'm Scott McIntosh. I'm recording today's presentation so that it'll be up on our website.
We'll have it on the website, so if you want to show it to other staff, you can do that. If not, if we can make other, if you need me to show up, we can make other arrangements, if you do it, if you want that. We have several examples. I'm going to email you. Hello. Policy and procedures that people have put into place. But we will also, what I want to do is just kind of go over this booklet a little bit. Tell me questions you have offhand, and I will try to make sure we answer these questions.
Does this only apply to high school age or is it
No.
junior high, elementary?
No, the law states in itself that it not only applies to school age, which we're responsible for, but the law is in there also. It's any city, village, business, or nonprofit organization where they are asked to participate in an athletic event. If they are 19 years of age or younger and they have to pay a fee to participate.
So Pee Wee football.
Yep.
Yeah, if it's not school sponsored, that's my question. How do we monitor that?
That will be the parents or the group organization's
Okay.
responsibility to notify the school.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the return to learn protocol goes into place regardless of where the concussion occurs.
Okay.
And, as we go through, I hope I clarify that even more for you. I presented this to the physical therapist the other day at Providence Medical Center and in Wayne. We're trying to work out, we're going to offer 3 or 4 at night programs for community people so that they have this information also, because it's not getting out to the general community.
So we might want to give our Pee Wee football organizers a heads up that one of them better get to it.
Yeah, yeah, and the Wayne athletic trainer, Tim Ellis, is gonna work with me on those, so we'll have the athletic trainer, the Wayne information, and then stuff from the state and burst. And, if they're successful, if we like them, we can try to organize those like in South Sioux or wherever, maybe up north more or something like that. Other questions that you might have right away? So let me kind of go through it, and my little thing I say is, please don't shoot the messenger. I didn't write
Are
this
you the
law.
messenger?
Yes, I'm the messenger, and I are the messenger, so please don't shoot the messenger here. So, as you know, this has been a law since 2012. And if you want to go to the one with the two brains, if you just want to scroll down a little bit. No, go back, I'm sorry. It's just like the next one. So what I just want to point out is when we talk about the difference between, it's page 5. So we talked about a difference between an acquired brain injury and a traumatic brain injury. So an acquired one is an injury to a brain that occurred after birth. So we have the ones that are anoxia, like maybe the kid had a loss of oxygen. I've seen cases where kids have swallowed the paper from a hard candy, blocked their airway, and so you end up, they had a loss of oxygen from that. It can be aneurysms, infections to the brain, strokes. Some kids have strokes at birth. These are not considered traumatic brain injuries. Traumatic brain injuries are considered a bump or blow or jolt to the head. They may not result in a TBI. At our workshop in this fall, the new guy that's the director of clinical research at the University of Nebraska, the Center for Brain and Biology, he said that they are finding that 50% of concussions do not present with symptoms for 24 hours after the presumed injury. And that was kind of a new number to me, and that's why we used to say wake them up, at night, because you'd be wanting to see if they had symptoms. But he said now, it may be 24 hours afterwards. So, best practice recommends that if we have a child on the playground fall off a swing or a slide, and we suspect that they may have suffered a concussion and we notify parents, maybe the parents say, I'm not coming after him, sit him down for a while. We get that. Every school district gets that. Then the necessary staff, including paras, administrations, are notified that this child may have suffered a concussion and to start looking for symptoms. And ahead of time, we need to educate the staff what those symptoms might be, and they are in this booklet. Okay? Because it can be 24 hours after the presumed injury. What he stated also is 80 to 90% recover within 2 weeks with no formal medical interventions if we follow return to learn procedures, and that there are no known medical treatments for concussions. There are none. So, in your booklet you will find the next slide just kind of talks about incidents of youth concussions in Nebraska. See, in this, my thing there is a little different than the booklet now because they gave us. In your book, you're also going to find symptoms of a concussion. If you want to go down till we hit some, oh, and just right there, just back for a minute. I think it's in your book someplace, but the problem with the brain and a concussion is this coup counter coup movement. So, the brain that sits on a stem like a bobblehead. And if you fall and hit your head on the front, it's not just going to injure the front, you're going to bounce back and hit the back of your skull too. So we know the front is, right here is your concentration piece. And then over here is your ability to problem solve. And over here is your ability to do visual math, things like that. So you hit these parts, and then you bounce back and you hit the occipital lobe. And the occipital lobe is your vision, so that's a lot of kids have double vision. It's your eating, your balance, so therefore the kids are off balance and stuff. And how hard you get hit is how often it goes coup, counter, coup, back and forth. To complicate that, our skull base, the pan that's in there, isn't smooth. There are bony spurs in it, and they all depend on, it's kind of like you might have a bony spur someplace, we don't know, everybody's different. Those bony spurs can actually cause a little bleed to go into the brain when it hits it. So of course if you hit side to side, you're going to also get that coup counter coup. But side to side you're going to get the small motor movements, maybe they can't pick up the ball. You're going to get maybe loss of words, you're gonna get loss of memories. You know, it depends on which way the coup counter coup goes. So, you know, when we see this, we know, okay, so the kid comes off and they can't walk straight and they're kind of seeing crooked. Then we're kind of thinking, oh, it's a front to back. We're gonna have to watch their concussion and things like that. Their concentration, excuse me. You know, our biggest fear is 19 times in the last 20 years in the state of Nebraska, we've had a second impact injury. Have any of you ever seen a kid with second impact? Where's the football kid that was Plainview? No. Near Norfolk.
Pierce, wasn't it?
Pierce. He was a second impact injury. He was, I believe, he went back to play still with symptoms, didn't he? I'm not sure on that. But if you go back with symptoms, you not only get that movement, but at a cellular level, if you get a second impact, you go into a massive bleed usually. And he's the latest case around Nebraska to have that we have that. So in your packet, it does talk about symptoms of a concussion that we can look for. There are thinking red flags, there are sleep red flags, physical red flags, social, emotional. There is, what we look for is here are all the symptoms there, and they're outlined in your booklet here, and I'll also send you the slides and stuff if you want to present them to your schools and things. So if they're not in here, you're going to get this slide show also. All right, if you'd go on to the next one. And these are just sleep, fatigue, red flags, the thinking cognitive ones, the physical red flags. Taste and smell are always an interesting one. Social, emotional, red flags. I had a kid one time, he was a basketball player, like a Heelan, I think it was. I worked at Mercy for 10 years in the trauma unit. And he came in and he broke his arm. So of course he wasn't playing basketball, right? I mean, we can see a broken arm. You wouldn't put a kid with a broken arm back in a basketball game. You wouldn't put a kid with a broken ankle back in a football game. But for some reason, we put kids with broken heads back in football and basketball. You know, because we don't really know that they've got the broken head, but that's why we're looking at the science better. But this kid had a broken arm, went to the doctor, you know, he was quiet because the arm hurt. The doctor thought nothing of it, emergency room, set his arm, sent him to school the next day. And the kid, the teacher asked a question, he was a straight A student, teacher asked a question and he can't answer it, the teacher. He had one of those side-to-side ones, so it affected his language. And, you know, every class he's failing and he's having these massive headaches. And he ended up, we pulled him out of school completely. And he was out of school for 6 weeks. He saw me an hour and a half a day, 4 days a week for 6 weeks to recover language and attention and concentration and stuff like that. You know, so that's why we have in your booklet also, I believe there are symptom checklists that you can give to people that, I think it's more towards the back, that will tell you some of the symptoms that you can ask the child. You know, do you have this, do you have that, for symptoms. Is that in there, do you know? Let me get one of those just to make sure. Is it in there? Perfect. So, you know, we try to give you that so that you have, I know a lot of you do, how many of you do impact for your testing? Okay, impact, what do you do for athletes? Do you have any testing you do? Okay, there are some clipboard ones too if you don't want to spend money that, you know, ahead of time. You ask kids to do certain things, and then if you pull them off and you suspect they've got a concussion, nothing in the law says you have to do testing. Best practices say, let's do testing, and then if they don't do as well, we put them on the protocol. But there's nothing in the law that says you have to do any type of testing like that. So there is the symptom ones there that you can, you know, ask the student And then, as I said, you don't just wanna ask once. That speaker we listened to said that they should be checked every 24 hours, like, you know, every day they're in school for the first 2 weeks. You should be asking them about symptoms. But that would be, somebody in your school will need to be designated as a concussion management team leader, and any concussions that are heard in the school or out of the school needs to be funneled through whoever you decide. A lot of schools, unfortunately, Jason, are the principal.
Right.
That's what a lot of schools are going to. And then they notify staff, and they assign whoever it is, if the nurse is there or whoever, to do the daily checklist of symptoms, to check in with teachers to see if any symptoms are showing up during class. Right now, Pender's in a pickle, because they have like 10 kids that have concussions right now that they've got on protocol. And I was down there last week and talking to them, and they said, Dr. Tim is one of the Pee Wee football coaches. And so he recognizes when a kid is dinged right away and pulls them out. The problem that they're having is they get them into school, they get them back on a return to learn protocol, but they're getting notes saying they should only attend 2 to 3 periods, and the parents are saying, well, then you need a quiet place for them to rest. You know, most school systems, what they're saying in that case is they come 2 or 3 periods and then go home. But you know how society is now. Is there anyone at home to watch them if they're having cognitive rest? Because the cognitive rest is no TV, you know, no iPads, no phones. No, I wouldn't be, no, that's it. Now, we had a kid in Wakefield earlier this year, and some of the accommodations we made for him was he wore a cap for the light, and then he ate lunch by himself, and he had a rest place he could. And when he knew, you know, he was getting symptomatic, he went home. And after another week, he stayed another period, kept his ball cap on. You know, he still had a quiet place to go to, and then he went home. And then finally, he was able to handle the entire day. So, you know, there are, what do we do there? You know, like I said, Pender's in a pickle because they've got 10 of them that they're running right now. You know, we don't limit the number of concussions that happen in our school. You know, we're going to have to run that. Some school districts are going to student assistant teams. They contact the concussion management team leader, and then they go into a student assistance team. And there is some steps for that also. So starting on page 12. Now, having said all of this, I am telling you best practice. The law does not state that you have to be symptom-free to start return to play. Some schools are saying they are running return to learn and return to play concurrently. Best practices say they are symptom-free before they start return to play. Now, Wayne is doing symptom-free before return to play. That's their protocol, and he very graciously shared it with us, so that I'll show you that in a little bit here.
Before you even start your return to play, step 1 or whatever, that can be headache-free.
Have to be back in school full-time, no academic accommodations, no modifications, and symptom-free.
I think that's what we need to. I have a question, and I think that Mike Casser went to something this past summer.
He did.
He might have been there. And something was in writing, something to the effect of the students should stay home as long as they have a headache. Stay home until they are headache-free. And it was saying, stay home up to 10 days and then start their return to play. And it seemed extreme.
Yes, and that, you know, there's different things going on out there. I'm trying to see if I know where this is in here. Basically, there's a return to academic progression in your booklet. I'm going to go out and get one. Okay. there's a return to learn, but there's also one that says return to academic progression. That is towards the back of the pamphlet.
Which, I mean, I guess it
Looks
wouldn't
like
make a
this.
difference. It wouldn't make a difference for the coaches anyway, if we're saying, if you have a headache, we're not starting on step one anyway.
Yeah,
As
right.
you said,
Have
I'm not
you
sure
ever
which
run
week.
into though where you've got a parent or something that's pushing the return?
To play?
Yeah.
Well,
We
Yeah,
have
well,
a-
Oh, yeah.
We tend to, and tell me if I'm wrong, Kathy, we have the athletic trainer sort of have the final say to prevent someone like a parent or maybe, hey, my uncle's a doctor, he said it was okay. You
Yes.
know, sorry, even if the doctor says okay, the trainer
This
can
is a
train to
school
see.
We've been getting
Yeah.
some confusion like
Yeah.
on our sign off, even from our physicians, whether they're actually returned, are they returned to start the progression or where are
Right.
they at? It's really confusing for us right now
Mhm.
on what they're actually signing them off. Are they cleared or are they
Go back to
supposed to
school
start
or-
progression or are they supposed to
Right.
be back in school? We don't even know half the time what we're doing.
And that's why I think it's probably good is not even start return to play until they're heading.
Right. Now,
Step three.
here's my take on it, you know, I'm also on the autism team. And this is related, I promise. A doctor can send us a note saying your kid is autistic. In the state of Nebraska, we cannot qualify them, Rule 51, till we do an educational evaluation. A doctor can send us a medical note saying they're cleared, I want them back full thing. But until we do our educational evaluation, they can't go.
But LB 260 says as soon as they got permission from the doctor, they're cleared.
They're cleared to return to play, which means progression.
The protocol, step one of that.
Right.
Yeah, so it
But the
says,
protocol also says you can go through that checklist. You can take multiple steps within a day.
you can, right.
So
So let me get back to
that's where
Jason's
the
question
confusion really
first.
gets at.
Yes, and let me get back to Jason's question first. If you look at this return to academic progression, all they have to do is be able to handle 30 minutes of mental exertion without worsening symptoms to return to school. That's all they have to have. They don't have to be headache-free, symptom-free,
To
whatever.
return to school.
30 minutes to return to school, that's all they have to have. And then the team looks at symptomology, like we showed you that thing. It's more towards the back, it's almost to the way back, yeah. There's one return to academic and then there's a return to play. So then they start into school part-time, you've got maximum adjustment, shortened day, built-in breaks, maybe lunch in a quiet environment. And then when they can do 30 to 40 minutes of sustained mental exertion without worsening, they go on to more, maybe not built-in breaks, 3 and 4, you know, the kind of gray areas. And then you go on from there. But they only have to be 30 minutes that they can handle it to return
Without any worse.
without getting worse. However, it's gonna get worse as they're in school.
No. But now I'm confused, I guess.
Mhm.
Our return to play involves day one, you do not practice at all. You can't go to step 2 without a whole day going by of no practice. And then I think day 2 is.
Now, that's considered best practice again.
Yeah, I'm
You know,
not saying
yeah,
we're right or doing it correctly. What
Right.
I'm saying is
Right,
our kids aren't allowed to skip those steps. I mean,
Right.
not in the return to play, no.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and, but you know, again, it's a thing when the physician says to you, they can go ahead, return to full practice. You know, again, this isn't, you know, we make it as an academic, as an educational decision. You know, if we are seeing symptoms, or the child reports symptoms, we are saying, even though the doctor cleared you, we are not, you know, approving you at this point to do this. So, kind of skipping around based on the questions, did I answer your questions there? And did we, a little clearer on what you're saying or not?
Well, it still leaves it kind of gray for me in the fact that we're not doctors or medical staff to be making that decision, and we're
And
think
here's,
that-
I mean, we need a doctor's note anyway.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's the final say, I guess is where I stand.
that's the educational
Right,
component.
but then who makes that decision on what the final say is?
Our trainer does.
I think
Yeah.
trainers.
Your
You
trainer,
don't want your coaches to.
no, or whoever,
You don't really want anybody that's not medical qualified.
Right. And, tell me if I'm wrong, I think if trainers more qualified than just a family physician.
here's the
Do you have
problem.
a full-time trainer then?
No, a couple once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the
So-
problem with the doctor piece, and I'm interrupting and I apologize, but the doctor piece is, you cannot diagnose a concussion with a CAT scan or an MRI. So a lot of times they'll say, they're fine to go back. Everything is based on symptoms. And if we are still seeing symptoms academically or in play, we are not gonna send them to get the final clearance.
They come back from the doctor for us, they're gonna do the return to learn
You
through
wanna
the
hand out
nurse.
the two Wayne ones that are-
We're going to return to play, and they have to be able to get through the return to learn and then to the return to play. But for high school kids, that's through our trainer. For the elementary kids, it's through the nurse. So once they come back, if they were diagnosed with a concussion, then they're gonna have to go through the step-by-step progression.
These are Waynes here that we're giving you now, it's a share.
If it happens to be a day where the trainer's not there, our coaches don't want to take a chance, and so we might call a trainer or email them.
That's what I was wondering.
Here's the
if it's a
symptoms, and
part-time-
the trainer usually says, set them out, have them take that, what do you call it, the impact,
Yeah.
Mhm.
since they've already had a baseline at the start of the year, have them take that test, and you can read those results. But almost always he says, set them out today, and then I'll look at those results and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, we're fortunate enough to have full-time now,
Yeah.
so if that helps.
Right.
Do you have a once a week trainer?
Once a week, yeah.
Mhm. And,
Probably the same trade.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
well, do you have a CNOS trainer or do you have Tim Ellis?
No, we have
CNOS.
CNOS, yeah. And they have Tim Ellis that does theirs.
He's in your building 5 days a week.
So, you know, when you look at the actual law itself, and I also have a copy in there, it says it can be a licensed healthcare physician, certified athletic trainers. A lot of them don't feel comfortable doing that. Tim will not diagnose a concussion. He does not feel comfortable doing that. A neurophysiologist or a qualified individual who is licensed. A nurse I don't believe nurse practitioners or chiropractors are included in that list.
Rocky, what's your typical time that you have, time frame that you have kids out, just in general?
I would say minimum of 7 days, and it could be up to whatever.
Does that include the return to learn and?
Yeah, it'll be extended with the return to learn. Once you can go through the return to learn, that's it, in terms of the, symptoms and things like that, then we'll move on to our kids who are, playing. In fact, just take that next step to Tim, and he'll go through his step-by-step. We had a step-by-step in last year for return to play, and that was 5 to 7 days minimum then. And I would say to get back, you're gonna be about 2 weeks probably automatically. Knock on wood, we haven't had anything this year. We still have 2 games, football games left, and basketball season, we've had it in basketball too. But it, that's, everybody's watching it a lot closer now too.
And I'll be sending you other concussion policies. I have 2 additional ones. One is one that was developed and they're selling, like a lawyer group developed it. And then the other one was the Gibbons school system, and they said we could send it out so you can look at Wayne's, you can look at Gibbons, you can look at the one that you can purchase, from a lawyer type of stuff. So you can get an idea and don't have to reinvent the wheel for your own policies.
Yeah, I've had Tim, he's kind of our guru on this. I've had him look at it, do it all. I mean, he brings it to me, I've looked through it, said, you're the man, and keep moving on with it. When LB 923 came out, and with the return to learn, then we revised again this year, and we have a new form out. it's kind of like the part for the parent signature thing too. We are now going to hold those parent signatures as long as we can, you know, that type of thing. I think we're at a workshop and Bob talking about and the NFL players coming back 30 years later.
It's the very last page. There's a
Saying this
suggestion.
is what happened. Well, we want to make sure that the protocol is done in terms of the signing of the papers and things like that.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of skipping around trying to answer your questions, so if I get too discombobulated, just yell at us, or Arian, if you have anything you want to throw in also, because I'm kind of just trying to answer your questions. What I'd like to do is kind of go to page 12 and just kind of go along there and see if you have any questions as we go. We tried in this booklet not only to give you some forms, some examples, but also resources you can click on and things like that. So it talks about the concussion management team. I think we might have a slide for that, but members can include a healthcare professional. We say that's essential. That may be your physician that signs up. The parents, the school administrator, or a designee. And then you can have the athletic director, athletic trainers, coaches, school nurses, teachers, whoever you want to have on there. Keeping in mind that most concussions, 90% of concussions, are going to resolve without medical intervention in 2 to 3 weeks. If after 3 weeks they're still having signs and symptoms, you're going to push them into a 504 or get them to your SAT team, consider additional modifications, and consider testing. If it goes longer than 3 weeks, I would say, is what they say the outside is. 90% are going to resolve before the 2 to 3 weeks. So the concussion occurs if at a school sporting event or other school activity, family is notified of possible concussions. I have a link for you in the links page that talks about what, you can go to NSAA, the Nebraska School Athletic Association, and they, I believe, have a notification link that you can link to that would have a form that you could start with and see if your school system likes it or not. And it's one that they recommend that you could use, the concussion clearance form, and I've got the link in the back for that. You encourage the parent to obtain medical confirmation of concussion from a licensed healthcare provider. You don't require them to. If you require them to, for a return to learn, we have to pay if they ask. You encourage them. If you have a parent that says, I don't want to take them to the doctor, you put them on a return to learn protocol anyway. The only time they are required to take them to the doctor is if they want to return to play, because that is extracurricular and we don't have to pay. So that's why the wording is encourage. Because we don't want to end up having thousands of dollars of doctors' bills flowing into school systems because we're saying you have to take them to the doctor. The parents sign a release of information form allowing the school to be notified of concussions by the healthcare provider and for information sharing. You will need to designate a concussion management team contact person. They are notified of the concussion by parent, coach, athletic trainer, or healthcare provider. There's where Pee-wee football, summer baseball, they need to be notifying the school. Then they inform any appropriate school personnel. Gal wrote me this year from, I'm trying to think what school, it was one in ESU 8, and she said, kid fell off the top of the slide. We called parents, parents refused to come get him. So we notified teachers, here's some signs and symptoms to look for. Kid said he was fine. This was like morning recess. By afternoon recess, he went out to run and he couldn't run straight and he had a headache and stuff. And so we again notified the parents and said, you have to come after him now. But they had notified the appropriate teachers, school personnel, and they knew what to look for. So when the kid couldn't walk straight and he sat down and said he had a headache, the para out on the playground brought him back in. Now her question, they followed exactly what they needed to do. Her question was, we couldn't demand the parent to come after the child. And that's kind of answer to some of yours when a doctor says, medically, yeah, sure, he can return to play. But educationally, if we're seeing symptoms, we're gonna say no. This is our domain, is what it is, really. Then you start a gradual return to learn protocol. If a kid has symptoms on Friday night football, parents and the kid say they did cognitive rest Saturday, Sunday, he maybe took a walk, he did great. You say, okay, we're gonna bring him back, see how long he can go without symptoms. He goes all day, teachers don't need to make any accommodations, he has no headaches. Maybe he skipped steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe it only took 48 hours to resolve. And so, if you check with the concussion management team leader, checks with the child or whoever they designate, are they reporting any symptoms? They check with all the teachers, and teachers go, nope, they did everything in school, they didn't have any complaints, they talked the way they always talk. I think that they're doing good. Then, maybe you skipped all the way down to school full-time, and maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday already you're saying to the parents, you can take the kid back to the doctor and get a medical clearance so we can start return to play. Now that's a possibility. You don't have to take a day for every step.
In the return to work.
Yep. Yeah. It's all based on I'm saying it wrong. Symptomatology, anyway, on symptoms. Oh, that's ain't the word. So.
Maybe this is a question for Ariane too, because her own son had a broken nose a couple times. Is that type of injury should you assume that you should check for a concussion also?
Yes, because I think that kind of falls under the umbrella of the bump jolt to the head bump, yep.
Okay.
So just assessing that. And sometimes it is just localized and there's no other symptoms, but I think anytime there's anything to the head, yeah, just
Well, we had a
assessing.
girl basketball player that in practice hit the face last year, basically hurt her nose, and the next day she had a headache.
So then there's that coup counter thing, yeah. And as I said, there's that symptom checklist in there that you can use with people. Then there's a gradual return to learn protocol based on individual needs of the student. And then the CMT documents physical, and as you said, keep track of all of this. So we want evidence every day. You're checking with teachers, you're checking with your student, and you can use the symptom checklist, or if you have something else you've developed, for cognitive, behavioral, and emotional symptoms. And then, if needed, there are academic adjustments and accommodations. We'll get to that page here in a moment. There are some recommended ones in this booklet. And then you monitor with the teacher the effectiveness of the adjustments. Readjust as needed. At step 11, if the family, school, and student agree they're free and functioning back to baseline, they return to classroom with no adjustments or accommodations. Then the parents can go for medical clearance to start the return to play progression. After the return to play, after a successful return to learn. So this is not what the law states, this is what best practice says. And our best practice is based a lot on the National Football League. Their linemen and the tackles are getting dementia 10 years before the average populace and getting it a lot worse. And they're the ones pushing this, The interesting thing, like you were saying about a girl's nose, is of course football's the soccer is another one, and because they don't build the neck strength. And so they get a lot of concussion because they take hits and stuff and they don't have the neck strength that a lot of other people do. So, you know, it's not just boys getting these concussions. Has your son had a concussion?
Yes.
So what were some of his symptoms then?
Just headache and vomiting, yeah, nausea, some blurred vision.
Yeah.
Hey, Rock, well, I just
No, no.
looking at Wayne's here, and then you said encourage parent to obtain medical confirmation. So, is this something Wayne should change in step 3? All athletes suspected to have concussion must be medically evaluated?
That, they say athletes, not students.
Okay.
So yeah, you know, I didn't look close enough at that, I don't think.
Well, I understand.
Because Tim asked me about this, and he had me look it over, and I was, this is more if it's a return to play, and you can see up above it says, prior to a return to play, this is what they have to do,
Just make it-
okay? Yeah, that's the return to play, more protocol.
Yeah, the return to learn we're still working a little bit on.
Yeah,
So typical process for most of you guys, if there's a suspected concussion, then the parents are notified, it's up to them to take them in to get it verified, right? And then they'll come back and start return to learn process, then they'll go back into the physician for clearance later on.
right, but they don't have to take them the first time.
But athletes have to be, because
Not
the
the
coaches
first
are
visit.
required by law, not if they are suspected. If it's just suspected, then you're required by law to send them for evaluation.
It says your son or daughter has been removed and disqualified until they've received a medical evaluation, but that might be after they've gone all the way through return to learn. If you have parents that say, no, I don't wanna spend the money, by law, you can't force them to.
We can still put them through the return to play, before they play.
And the other thing
Yeah.
I've heard is, you know, as a parent, you can refuse to seek medical treatment for your child. And of course, if we would require that, we would have to pay, but if we're not doing that part, then, you know, you have the right to refuse, but then we also have the right for, to disqualify your child from playing the sport.
But you never played, or what, they don't have a
They
medical,
have to get it before you start the return to play, but not the return to learn.
but not
Right.
return to work.
Yeah, and they don't have to, some people are saying they have to go 3 times. They have to go when it's diagnosed, they have to go before they start return to play, they have to go at the end of return to play to be cleared. No. They have to go before they start the return to play. And then we can start our progression at that point.
I have one we missed on, junior high football player, got hit, set out practice, or I don't know if Tim was even told about it, and then, mom called, he had headaches, so he's staying home. And then he stayed home the second day, and then we finally said, you need to get him to a doctor, and what happened was, it was never really classified concussion. Then pretty soon, he got, I think he went back to the doctor and a second time, and then they diagnosed his post-concussion symptoms. And so, I mean, this went on for, the kid probably missed off and on 10 days of school. He's out, he didn't play anymore, he's a smaller kid, and they decided not to. But in the meantime, return to learn, we did a lousy job because we didn't realize he had a concussion. And so he was going to movies, and he was going to things like that, and coming home with headaches and all these kinds of things. So if you hear even a kid getting knocked out of practice or anything like that, it's kind of like a red flag. You kind of need to start checking out what's going on.
So basically, anything that's suspected, an return to learn, it
Yeah.
just automatically goes into a return to learn,
Yeah,
kicks in right away.
Yeah,
yeah.
And even, you know, it may last 48 hours. You know, it may be, oh yeah, teachers are saying no signs and symptoms. Maybe he had his headache Friday, Saturday, but he returns to school because he can handle 30 minutes. He doesn't complain all day. We don't have to give him the rest breaks because somebody is designated to check on him, and the teacher's going, yeah, he's doing fine. I haven't had to make any accommodations, you know. And then, you know, like I said, you can skip steps then.
You have more people observing that way,
Right.
see what's happening.
Exactly.
So it seems like on the return to learn, it's kind of our perception of his symptoms, or
Yeah.
lack of symptoms, but on the return to play, we have to have medical authorization regardless.
Oh, we're doing that.
Yeah, you have to, before, you know, and some people perceive it as before they start the return to play progression.
Okay.
Some people perceive it as, we educationally say he's ready to start return to play. We put them all the way through, then they go back and get you have permission to do it. Most places, I'm thinking the law says before they can start return to play progression, that's when the one mandatory doctor visit has to be.
Not
Yeah.
the day before the game.
No.
Before the,
Right, but I know the law says something about.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
It's
To
a
start.
medical provider, we went to the highest level, we said that like a physician,
Yeah,
I think is what we put in ours, but I think it was medical, licensed healthcare professional, I think is what it is.
mhm. Yeah, and if you check in your book, we've got the actual law in there,
Yeah.
in your booklet, and I think it's before you know, the mandatory piece is before you start the progression, if I remember correctly.
Because I think it's like number 2 over here, that
Yeah.
license.
We're not.
Yeah, number 13 here says, parent guardians deliver medical clearance from the healthcare provider, providing written permission for the return to play. That is the only mandatory one if they're gonna return to play. We would like them to go get a medical confirmation first. We would like them, some school systems are saying, you get this clearance, then go through the progression, and then you gotta go again. Some school systems are doing it, it's only mandatory once.
Because the kids we had, I think a lot of it, I mean, he didn't feel well, but most of it came with, it was after 24 hours, that was the worst. And then he came back out to practice, he's gonna be a manager, and it was 2 or 3 days later, and he had seizures. So,
Yeah.
it was,
That cognitive rest piece is an amazing piece. It's, you know, it's like taking a pop bottle and shaking it up. Do you want to open it?
yeah.
You know, and that's, but if you let it set for a while, it settles down. And that's with these kids' brains too, if they can get seizures. You know, if they've done too much cognitive, too much physical, you know.
Your analogy too, when you talked about, when you break an arm, you put in a splint, you mobilize it, and that's what you do with the brain too.
Yeah.
It's just that, like you said too, when you send them home, mom and dad aren't home, or mom and dad don't realize what they're doing, and they're texting and using the phone, or, computer and things like that. I mean, that's what they do, they're gonna do in their spare time, they really can't do that, even television.
Yeah.
So, reading and things like that that stimulate the brain. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, some of them like it, but,
Yeah. And you know, the problem like right now is we've got school systems saying, but they're not taking their maps. You know, how are we gonna give them quarterly grades?
Right.
What the State Department, the educational department at the state level says, the grade you got to date is what they got. You know, if it's not something that they need the base skills, maybe science or math, you don't require makeup work. You don't send homework home. You don't make them do this work. This is a cognitive rest, and you're not gonna stress them out later by making them, because stress will cause the symptoms to get worse. You're not gonna stress them out later by making them do the makeup work and the makeup test.
his PE grade was, he was failing because of participation. So I said, yeah, wipe that out, because of what was going on. He can't participate.
No. So how do you fail a kid who can't would you feel a kid with a broken leg? You know, we need to think of it as a broken head. You know, we need to have that philosophy. You know, something's broken.
Born that way, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
at South Sioux, we're on one-to-one
Mhm.
with computers, and I don't know if any of you guys know, but we got bumped to Class A, and we play Creighton Prep,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
We get, you know, we're just getting smashed, and every week, we get a new one to the list, and I got a new one this morning, you know, and so, and he's not in school today, but tomorrow, I'm gonna go wait for him at the door, and say, give me your computer. You're not gonna be on the computer, if he's even in the building,
Yeah,
so,
that's it.
yeah.
And then you're gonna have to notify the teachers, you know, all
Yeah,
personnel.
we do that.
Here are the symptoms, you know,
Yeah.
symptomatology,
Yeah.
McKim.
How does should we be the ones that make sure the Pee-wee coaches and the,
Yeah, you know,
how are you gonna do that?
well,
How's your organization?
last Friday, well, we aren't, because we're school-based, right? But I work for Providence Medical Center also. I also work for Pender, I know I'm an idiot, right? Anyway, so, last Friday I presented to physical and occupational therapists and in Wayne, and Tim Ellis, their athletic trainer, was there with me also. And Providence has asked the two of us to do a series of workshops for the community. And we're just trying to work out times. What I would like to see would be maybe other, either hospitals or even if schools are willing to support it. I have a $5,000 grant, and so I can pay Tim an hourly wage, I can pay, you know, monies that way, that maybe we could come to South Sioux and do one for parents. Maybe we could come to Randolph, you know, try to spread ourselves out and do some workshops for the community-based people. You know, the 5,000 can go pretty far, really, you know, if we use it judiciously, that we can, and the state said if we needed additional funds to get this out, they might let us know. So, that's my hope, that we can hold more community. Our responsibility that the state gave to us as a burst team this year is, number one, get every school to have a concussion management team contact person and know the forms that you have to use so you can develop your policies. That was the only thing the state gave to us this year. But my concerns and Tim's concerns are those kids out there that are coming in and we don't know that they've had a concussion, that they've fallen off a four-wheeler, that they've fallen off a sled, you know, they had a skiing accident, you know, things like that. So we only have about 5 minutes left here. So there are some more there. There are tips for parents. There are tips for teachers. There are resources that are in here. The law itself is in there. A return to academic. Here are potential adjustments, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel on these pages. So it's, you know, frequent breaks, reduce exposures to aggravators like fluorescent lights. Ball caps work amazingly. You know, if a kid, if these overheads are bothering them, put a ball cap on. And the teachers just know they're allowed to walk around with their ball caps on. And that helps tremendously.
And you have the kid that has a concussion on their wall.
Well, then they don't return to play, right?
Well,
There-
what happened?
They're out for the whole year.
Yeah.
We're gonna make sure it's like a bright orange.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Yeah.
Concussion, right there.
They'll enjoy it.
You know, but they have things like sleep issues, dizziness, thinking cognitive, and then academic recommendations. This would be information from the teacher for the concussion management team. So, you know, if you don't do it emails, you can actually, or you can put that form onto emails. Then, just briefly, since all our last workshops, I put down, do some of the frequent questions and put it in the back. One other thing I wanted to comment about from this Dr. Mylander from the University of Nebraska is he talks about daily education for students. And the things that he talks about is how the process works, because we don't bother to tell the parents and students. They don't know how long they're out for and what to look for. And he talks about symptoms, how it works, how the brain works, maintaining social connections and individual responsibilities. And then he talks about some replacement behaviors. Would you want me to attach his notes too? Just, okay. If you'd make note of that for me, that we're gonna attach this in the email we send out with, I've got the latest October booklet, the, 2 protocols that other people have written. We'll include those notes from him. And then there are frequent questions people have been asking me lately that I've put in the back. Hopefully it'll answer some. So, what else do you need from us to maybe get your protocol started? Are you feeling better about it?
Yeah, just a question. You guys, when you're doing it, when you're doing it, is that what, like, you know, the person that's walking around evaluating this student, are these the questions, that's what you're looking for?
It's
basically?
all based on symptoms, yeah. I'm looking, I don't
So you're just asking them straight out? Are you just going to do what the teacher say?
Both. You look at,
I mean, I'm probably gonna be the one that's gonna have to do this.
well, we're supposed to talk to the student daily. Are you feeling any symptoms? But you don't just say, do you have any symptoms? Nah. You ask them these
Can I
questions.
go through the-
Then there was another form, bear with me just for a moment, so I'll get it right back to you. There's another one there that's the teacher's report, and you give them, right, this one here. Okay, that they could report on that, and you may have given them a list of signs and symptoms, you know, to look for ahead of time. South Sue, do you have yours all set and going and operational and,
We're in the early stages, but we've got a full-time trainer
okay?
that's there every day,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes in at 2:30.
Okay,
Basically an hour before school is out, and so it's all, I mean, symptom-free
right.
before they're even allowed that progression back into
Mhm.
return to play.
And that
We're
is,
just, what we're doing is, this year, we're just getting started on the return to learn,
right.
so,
Well, it just became law, you know,
yeah.
and that's what Wayne's doing, they're following best practices also. You know, most schools are attempting to follow best practice, which is symptom-free before you even start. In learn, full school time, full time in school, no symptoms, no accommodations, no modifications, then we start return to play. Yeah. And, you know, I've had some people tell me, well, I'm gonna wait and see what other schools do. The problem is, there's no wait time with this law, it's law now. You know,
Does this have to be put in the board policy?
I would assume so. Mhm.
Now?
We have,
And did you have to return to play?
we had a return to play. We haven't updated, I think it's under 260 yet, so I haven't talked, Mark's aware of 923 and what we've done, but it's never gotten to formal board meeting yet. I mean, it's, I can policy, but not policy, you know, it hasn't been formally, it's been presented to them, they're aware of it, but it hasn't been.
And we just purchased the CAN policy, which, you know, we worked with over the whole summer and then finally got it approved here in August, which included this new law, but the policy there, and that's from the Perry Law Firm, simply says that the school will have a return to learn and a return to play protocol in place. Almost like you'd have it in your handbook, it wouldn't necessarily have to exist in your board policy. Which might be safer anyway, I don't know if you want that specific.
We tweaked it 2 years in a row, about 3. We built the first one, and then this last summer we rebuilt. And then I know we've already, we got some more information on the checklist down at the bottom of that, the meeting page, I think that's the bottom of that first, not the policy one, but we did some updating on that already, so 3 times we've already updated things in the last 2 years.
this is an example of a purchase one that I think they sent out to issue 7 that they could purchase. And so then it just talks about, you know, the 3 precepts of the basic law, training of the parents and coaches, and then the education piece, and this is where this neuropsychologist is saying you've got to also educate daily and do that for best practice, and then the response to concussions, and they include this booklet in it and everything. And this will be included in the email. So this is some of the stuff that, that you can purchase through law firms and things, that there are ones out there already made like this.
I think that is ours right there.
That one is?
If that's the one that PSU's purchased.
Mhm.
And I don't think did our issue purchase it here too?
I just know it was emailed out.
I think
Like,
all the issues.
right before
should
school.
All of
be
them
the same.
did
Right before
purchase
school
it.
started, yeah.
Okay, and if you wanna go kind of fast so they can see, I mean, they have the whole booklet in it and everything.
I think
so
that's
that-
it.
Yeah,
I know we
that's it.
formally did.
Okay.
Those 2 pages on this one, but there's the 2 of 30 that we can,
Yeah,
you know, go through, but then it goes into, more detail of the highlighted topics on the first 2.
You've referenced a couple different websites here where we can get forms, but is this
Mhm.
booklet available digitally?
Yes.
yes, and we are gonna get a hard copy to everyone, and there are, thank you. I just had these made because they were supposed to get them to us, and we found out Friday that they didn't have them printed yet, the state didn't. I put some links that I have people ask a lot of questions about in here. So they're frequently asked questions about the law to begin with, more information on return to play, what the act requires on the athletic side from the Department of Health and Human Services. The concussion-approved training courses, you know, everyone's supposed to be taking the courses. Most of them you can do online. The concussion clearance form, and then the NSAA procedure for handling concussions and return to play and return to classroom limits. So they also, in this booklet from the state, have, I believe there's another one in there that's a links page also, if I remember correctly, that gives you other information too.
Yeah, because I've heard it a lot when I got here, so really I mean, was like, just type in the search, type in
Yeah.
concussion.
Oh,
They say,
okay. So
all
it's,
this learn, return, learn stuff, so it's popping up all over.
okay.
Right.
It's right there.
And they link, yeah, and they link it through NSAA, and also the Department of Health and Human Services has it. So, any other questions? I hope you feel a little more confident about the forms and things.
I think we're covered again and again by our high school coaches. I'm a little worried about what happens down at the elementary when they start playing club ball, and I realize it doesn't have to take a sporting event to cause concussion either. It can happen anywhere, but I think there's gonna be some gaps in our lower grades.
Yeah.
Concussion.
And that's why we want a concussion management, you know, optimally, again, best practice would be every building would have a contact person, a team, concussion management team contact person. That would be what we would consider best practice, so that if a teacher says, oh, the kid said he fell on the playground, he's got a headache, you know, we could start the process. Yeah. Anything else we need to get you? You feel this helped? No?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, because I kind of went based on your questions. You know, we didn't follow the slides very well or anything, but just based on your questions, we were trying to do this. So, did it answer your question that you had about the clearance and stuff? Okay. That's why we were hoping we could get people together and share policies that are already out there and stuff like that. So, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We're gonna send this one electronically, we're gonna send one from Gibbons electronically. I can send you this PowerPoint if you wanna do some educations. We're going to send the notes from that neuropsychologist, that they're real exciting, but they give you a little more information. And that booklet, even though you can link right away, like you said, you can link for different places, but it'll be all on 2 emails for you then, that you can have them all in one place. And, you know, you can call myself, you can call Ariane, you can call the service unit, they will get to us. And, you know, if you have opportunities that we could do some community ones, you know, I can see if the grant would pay for it, but I know like Providence is going to be actually paying for some, and maybe they would do it in other communities also. They're gonna do a bunch through the hospital. Well, like if we wanted one in Wakefield, I think we could contact the hospital and say, will you offer one in the Wakefield community? And they would, I'd love it. I work at Wakefield full time. Is what, you know.
You're a team leader.
Oh, no, about that, I forgot about that.
Ours too.
Okay, thank you all. And, you know, don't forget, if you have any questions, you know, please,
Thank you.
you've got our contacts. Thank you.